Welcome to Applied Algebra, Math PT 103, and we're going to work on polynomials to start with. So here in section 1 of chapter 5, we're going to work on our fundamental operations, which focuses on our order of operations. One of the ways that you could learn them is through Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally, which sometimes you may know as PEMDAS. No matter which way you have learned it before, right now we're focusing on that the first thing you're going to take care of is any parentheses. That also includes other grouping symbols such as brackets. Second thing we're going to get rid of is exponents. Then the third step is to do all multiplication and division from left to right. Doesn't matter who comes first, it has to occur from left to right. And then the last thing we'll do is any addition and subtraction from left to right. So I just have 4 problems written down that we're going to work through together. So in this first one, we have 4 minus 9 times the parenthesis of 6 plus 3, close parenthesis, divided by negative 3. So since we have a grouping symbol here, we're going to do the 6 plus 3 first. So that gives us the 9. So now what happens is our problem looks like 4 minus 9 times 9 divided by negative 3. So when any number is sitting outside of a parenthesis, that just means multiplication. So now as I look at this problem, I've gotten rid of the parentheses. The parenthesis around the negative 3 doesn't count. All that is doing is trying to make sure that we know that the 3 is negative. So we're now going to look for any exponents, which I do not have. So I'm going to now do any multiplication and division from left to right. So the first thing I run into is this 9 times 9. So that is the first one from left to right. 9 times 9 is 81. So if I go ahead and put in what's left, I still have 4 minus divided by negative 3. So as I look at the problem now, I'm still going from left to right. The first thing I see is subtraction, which doesn't occur yet, so I leave that alone. I move over and I see division. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to do this division right here. Now I'm not going to look at this minus sign right here. I'm going to cover that up with my fingers and I'm only going to focus on 81 divided by negative 3. A positive divided by a negative is a negative, and 81 divided by 3 is 27. So 81 divided by negative 3 is negative 27. Now I do bring down the 4 and the minus. So what I have is 4 minus negative 27. Well, if I'm subtracting a negative, what it's asking me to do is do the opposite operation. So really this problem is asking me to do 4 plus 27. And 4 plus 27 is 31. So that is my final answer. The example 2 that we see here is a little bit larger. It's got a few more steps to it. I'm going to do it the same way where I write down each process, one little piece at a time. So parentheses is the first thing. Again, the parenthesis around the negative 6 doesn't count. That's just making sure I keep the negative in there. I'm really only seeing, I don't see a parenthesis until I get to the 3 minus 5. So here's my first parenthesis. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. So we're going to go ahead and rewrite the rest. I have negative 6 plus 5 times negative 2 squared times negative 9, and I've ran out of room. So I'm going to actually rewrite some of this here. Let's get rid of my red, and I'm going to move it over a little bit. So negative 6 plus 5 times negative 2 squared times negative 9 minus 7. There's the negative 2, and I still have the power of 3. Okay, so now I'm going to find out what's next. I don't have any more parentheses or work to do within the parentheses. So now my next step is exponents. And I actually, from left to right, I see this exponent and I see this exponent. And the nice thing about as exponents is you can usually do them all at one time unless I have an exponent inside of an exponent. So I'm going to go ahead and do both of those at the same time. Negative 2 squared, a negative times a negative is a positive, so this ends up being the number 4. And then a negative 2 to the third. So what that's asking me is it's saying negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Negative times a negative is a positive. Positive times a negative is a negative. We know if we have odd amounts of negatives, we have a negative answer. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8. So negative 2 to the third power is negative 8. So if I go ahead and rewrite the rest of this, negative 6 plus 5 multiplied by the 4 multiplied by my negative 9 minus my 7 times my negative 8. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we've done all exponents, we've done all grouping symbols, so now I'm doing multiplication and division from left to right. Here's addition, so I leave that alone. Here's my first part. This is my first multiplication that I run into. So I almost forgot to change my there. Okay, 5 times 4 is 20, so I'm going to leave that. I'm going to rewrite the rest. So I have negative 6 plus times negative 9 minus 7 times negative 8. Okay, so as I look back, I'm going to keep going across. I'm adding. I have another multiplication. Here's another one. So 20 times negative 9. A positive times a negative is a negative. 2 times 9 is 18, and the 0 just tags along. So now I have negative 6 plus negative 180. I'm going to go and put that in parentheses so I know that it's just a negative. Minus 7 times negative 8. And I'm actually going to go ahead and bring it up and rewrite it just so we can keep going. See what's going on here. Okay. So as I go along here, I'm going to look for any other multiplication and division. Here I have addition, here I have subtraction, but here I do have multiplication. So again, I'm going to not do the negative. That's up to you if you want to. I have 7 times negative 8. Positive times a negative is a negative. 7 times 8 is 56. So I'm going to rewrite the rest. I have negative 6 plus negative 180 minus negative 56. Now, if I'm subtracting a negative, it's saying do the opposite. So what it's really asking me to do, I'm going to rewrite this whole thing. It's saying take negative 6, add negative 180, and now add 56, because the opposite of a negative is a positive. So as I look through here, I now am down to just addition and subtraction. So this one is saying add two negatives. So this is essentially saying I owe you $6, I owe you $180, so now I owe you $186. To that, I'm going to add 56. So if this is my bill that I owe you, and I have $56 in my pocket, well, I can now pay that bill. Negative 186 plus the 56 that I'm paying you, I still do owe you $130. Most of us have used money within our normal lives, and so a lot of times when you're doing any adding and subtracting, it's nice to be able to go back and think about how we would pay a bill. Okay, so now what's happening is I have this in variables. So I have the variable x, the variable y, and what they're asking me to do is go ahead and plug in some numbers for them. So the first step we're actually going to do in this problem is we're going to take the letters out and we're going to replace those with the numbers. So what we're going to do here, if I get my pen working, is the x is 4. So we have 4 squared minus the y number, which is 3, plus the 5. That's all divided by 2 times x, which is still 4, and minus 2. So what we essentially have here is when you have something in a fraction form, there essentially are grouping symbols. You must do everything in the numerator and everything in the denominator before you do any type of division. So we're going to go through and just focus on one part at a time. So as I look at my numerator, I don't have any grouping symbols, but I do see an exponent, so I can skip straight to part 2. So 4 squared is 16. So I'm going to move to the right this time. So it's 16 minus 3 plus 5. Now as I look at this, I only see subtraction and addition, so I can skip down to step 4. Within that, I have to make sure I do it from left to right. So the 16 minus 3 is the first thing I'm going to do. 16 minus 3 is 13. I still have the plus 5. Now I just have 13 plus 5. So my last step is going to show me that my numerator is at 18. Now I'm going to go to the denominator and do the exact same thing. So looking at my denominator, I don't see any grouping symbols. I don't see any exponents. I do see a multiplication. I do see 2 times 4. So when I look at my 2 times 4 here, I'm going to get 8. The negative 2 will tag along. Now I only have one thing left. I only have 8 minus 2. So I'm actually going to skip all the way over to here. And 8 minus 2 is going to give me 6. So now I have just one piece left, and this is actually division. And because they were in this fraction form and these essentially were grouping symbols, I had to do everything in the numerator, everything in the denominator, and now I'm going to get to divide. So you do have to treat it a little bit different than what we're used to. So 18 divided by 6 is 3. So make sure you do that division on anything that looks like a fraction last. Okay, so the last one we're going to do is this one, and that will be the end of section 1 when we're done with this one. So again, we're going to take the letters out and we're going to replace them with the numbers. So I have 3, I have A, which is 6, so it's 3 times 6 squared. Now I do have a parenthesis, B, which is 10, minus 3 times C, which is negative 5. I am going to go ahead and put that in another parenthesis there. So you'll notice I have a double parenthesis. If that bothers you, the other option you can do is to make it a bracket. And actually, let's go ahead and do that to just try and take out any confusion. So I'm going to use a different grouping symbol within that. And then I have a minus, let's go back to the red. So I have minus 6 times A is 6. Okay, so now that I've plugged in my numbers, I just go through my order of operations. So the first thing I'm going to do is parentheses. Well, that includes all grouping symbols, which includes these green brackets. So within the green brackets here, I'm going to think about just those and see what I need to do. Within here, same rules apply. So I don't do the subtraction first because in my steps, subtraction is step 4 and multiplication is step 3. So I have to do this first. So 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. I do have 10 minus that. So 10 minus that means that I'm going to do the opposite. So it's really saying do 10 plus 15. So everything here ends up just being 25. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the rest of it. So I have 3 times 6 squared times 25. That's all of this bracket. Now notice that bracket was squared, so I still have that squared, minus 6 times 6. Okay, so we've taken care of any grouping symbols. So now I'm going to do any exponents. So exponents, I see 2 of them. I have one here and I have one here. 6 squared, 6 times 6 is 36. 25 squared, if you don't know that, grab your calculator. 25 times 25 is 625. I'm definitely going to have to get my calculator out here pretty quick, because I've definitely got some bigger stuff going on. So those two end up being my exponents. So I still have the front 3 minus, I still have the 6 times 6. Just grabbing my calculator here real quick. Okay, so as I continue on, I've taken care of all the exponents. So now we're going to go ahead and move on into any multiplication and division from left to right. So this is the first one I'm going to run into. So 36 times 3 is 108. So I have 108 times, still have the 625, minus the 6 times 6. Okay, if I'm still looking from left to right, 108 minus 6 1/4. This is getting to be some large numbers. So this is 67,500 minus 6 times 6. Left to right, now I still have a multiplication with a 6 times 6. So 6 times 6 is 36, and I'm going to bring it on up here so I have some more room. 67,500 minus 36. That is the last thing I'm going to end up doing now. So my final answer ends up being 67,464. Okay, go ahead and work through the assignment. If you have any questions, please let me know so I can help you, and I'll be back with section 2.